Welcome, welcome, my fellow citizens. Good of you to finally join us. Allow me to be the first to welcome you to our new assembly chambers. Mind where you step though, as the building is not in the best shape. The Royal Guard made us work really hard to dislodge them from these halls. And though they haven't found the king, my men liberated a significant amount of wine from August's personal stores. Now since we're all here, I'd like to raise a toast. A good proposition, but I will have to refuse. There's a crowd gathering in the front of the palace, and I believe they need to be addressed and assured of victory, ours and theirs. Of course, the people need their new president, but come join us once you're done spreading the good news. That I will. Until then, I'll leave the wine in your capable hands, but do tell your men to roll some barrels down into the square. The people of Warsaw deserve a good drink tonight. That they do. I'll see to it that no one goes thirsty today. Give them your inspiring speech and come join us upstairs. We'll save a bottle for you. A toast, my friends, to our magnificent victory. May the Republic last for 1,000 years. May the royalists rot in their graves. Zdrowie. Zdrowie. Zdrowie, zdrowie. Look, gentlemen, I'm far from trying to spoil the mood, especially on such momentous occasion, but isn't it a bit too early for a victory drink? Józef, please, we've just broken Royalist army. We've stormed the king's palace, and right now our dear friend Ulrich is proclaiming a new republic. I'd say we deserve a moment to celebrate. These secondary issues can wait. They can't unless we want them to quickly become primary, nay, overwhelming issues. We have an army that needs to be paid, a capital that needs to be fed, a war with Hanover to wage, and, courtesy of von Wettin, we do not have any money to do any of it. But that's why we have you, good Józef. We have all agreed that your tax reforms will certainly improve the nation's budget. Yes, but I need time to enact them. Right now we're in control in major cities, but it will take months to take control of the rest of the country and years to reorganize the entire financial system into something that works. And even then I'm not sure how people will react to us tearing down all feudal rules. Change is not something most small folk enjoy. Citizens, Józef. Citizens, not small folk. It's an important difference now, but I see your point. But how about this? We could send our army to help your assessors and collectors establish themselves faster, and we could allow them to, say, confiscate a certain amount of goods from former noble estates. That should help keep the men fed, paid, and most of all dispersed. That way they won't get any bad ideas. That might actually work, thank you. And what about Poniatowski's force? Can the man be trusted? Lev will whip them into shape. He's been with the army his entire life and knows almost everyone, from common soldiers to high officers. He'll keep the men and their commander in line. Very well, I trust your judgment. But what should we do about the king? He doesn't have many friends around Europe, but I bet the man could still be dangerous. Quite the opposite. I think that August's escape is the best thing that would happen to us. Unknowingly, our former ruler gave us an amazing tool to appease the masses. No matter what tragedy may befall us, we can simply tell the people that it's King's doing. That harvest, King agents are sabotaging the grain stores. Plague, King's men are poisoning wells. Lost battle, King's spies infiltrated our armies. Alive, the man is more useful to us than he is to himself. The fool was always more suited to hunting than thinking. I have to admit I never thought of it in this way. But will it be enough to appease the crowds right now? After all these years, they'll want blood. And they will get it. The king might have escaped, but we've still managed to capture most of his supporters and old cabinet. Can you believe it? A country literally falls apart around him, and the Minister of War is found drunk in his mistress' house. Truly, the man brings shame to our entire nation. His head will suffice for now. And if we hurry up with this bottle, we might even get to his execution in time. I've heard they've prepared some outlandish contraption that supposedly makes this beheading business a piece of cake, no headsman needed. I'd like to see it in action. That's the Republic for you. Day one and people are already more efficient at their jobs. But as fascinating as it sounds, I'll have to pass. I'll wait for Ulrich and tell him of our plans. We'll join you later. The monarchy is no more. With the destruction of Potocki's forces, with capital city occupied and with king escaping for his life, we have effectively removed all organized royalist opposition. For the first time in history, our nation will not be ruled by a monarch, but a group of officials elected by votes cast by every single citizen. So, let us see just what kind of men will now rule the new Polish-Lithuanian Republic. The face of our government, our new president, is one Ulrich Poleska, a man known for being quite rigid when it comes to justice. He's also a religious man, but that doesn't stop him from being quite extravagant. Our prime minister is Rościsław Czwinowski, a man of great many talents. A harsh man, just like our president, he complements this trait by extensive knowledge of all things military, both at land and at sea. He's also a fierce liberal, which makes lower classes love him, while upper classes hate him. Overseeing our treasury, we have Józef Anton Daniłowicz, who, like Poleska, combines religious zeal with fancy lifestyle. He's also an experienced agrarian, who will probably do well managing extensive farmlands now abandoned by the nobles. Mariusz Ostrowicz is our justice man, and little is known about him other than the fact that he's a stone-faced servant of the law. Tobiasz Wieruszowski, our Secretary of War, continues the trend of frivolous but just competence in our government. He's a man who can develop complicated military plans at one moment and discuss quality of wine at the other. And finally, at the head of our non-existent navy stands Dobrosław Leśniewski. Not the most talented member of the assembly, but honest enough to admit it, which in turn means he's not trying to impress anyone and will accept good advice from anyone willing to give it. So, overall, there is a certain trend in this new government. First, it seems that none of our ministers came from nobility, which is manifested in their personal lifestyles that have little to do with Commonwealth traditions. The second thing is a strict sense of justice, perhaps even too strict when you think about it. Perhaps, after seeing how lawless and chaotic their country was during the reign of noble democracy, the men of the assembly decided that only strict compliance to the rule of law can fix it. But they need to remember that being dutifully just is only good when the law is good. So they will have to all sit down and write the code of laws once again, from the beginning, to remove all traces of corruption levied by nobility. On a side note, this is probably the best randomly generated government I have ever seen in this game. The sheer amount of harsh reputation traits means that I won't have to worry about civil unrest anytime soon, because they provide boosts to repression. I think that right now I might even conquer some foreign lands without having to worry about rebellions. Another good thing is the fact that not a single one of our ministers have any negative traits. More, their traits actually fit their position, something that almost never happens. So, overall, the people of Polish-Lithuanian National Assembly look like they're going to be really good at their jobs. And they will have to face a difficult task of salvaging the country that was, for many generations, plagued by incompetent rulers and upper classes who cared nothing about the nation's interest. The first order of business will be dealing with nobles around the countryside, who will inevitably still put up a fight. It will take months, maybe even years, to bring all of the former noble classes to heel, especially the magnates, the richest, most influential of the nobles. These magnates own wealth and lands comparable to those once owned by the kings, so they're able to afford their own private armies. And the new government suspects the magnates might actually be supported by other nations, especially Russia, since August von Wettin was placed on the throne by Tsar Piotr the Great. So, as a result of this, the army of Commander Prasmovsky have been immediately disbanded and sent out into the countryside to remove any pockets of noble resistance, and ensure that entire country is firmly in the Assembly's hands. So, it's time to start rebuilding. Few months later, we're still trying to repair the damage done to us by enemy armies and civil war, but it seems that we're doing so well, or at the very least we appear to be doing well, that we're starting to attract some important men to our cause. Here we can see that our Minister of Finances gained a new assistant, a man well versed in the ways of modern industry and construction, a perfect match for Daniłowicz, who's more focused on agriculture. Once again, it means that our new ruling classes are willing to listen to advice, so that bodes well for our economy. Thank you, man. You may leave us. To what do I owe the pleasure, Mr. Prasmovsky? The Assembly sent me to check where your loyalties lie, General. Told them there's no need, but some of the more impulsive members of our group think that you betrayed our cause by not showing to the battle. I had no choice. If there was even a slightest chance, I would have joined you just to make the old man pay. but with so many of my men unconvinced, I had to occupy them in some way. So I ordered some forced marching drills in the countryside and sent those I knew would have no doubts. Wasn't this enough to prove myself? It was, and that's what I told the assembly. Even in the best of times, I told them it's damn near impossible to convince an entire army to defect to the other side. There's always some malcontents, no matter how just the cause. Worst case scenario, you would have to fight your own men during mutiny. And even if they let you leave without a scratch, then some other officer would have led them to support Potocki. So, in my book, you did what you had to do, but an order is an order, so I had to come and check. But may I ask you, why were you so eager to fight Potocki? The way I hear it, he was sort of a mentor for you. That's what I thought as well. He really helped me rise in the ranks during these past few years. But the moment I became more popular than him, the moment I outshone him and proved I'm the better commander than him, he got jealous and betrayed me. If not for your agent's warning at Königsberg, he would have given me to Captain of the Royal Guard and I wouldn't be here today. I see. Thank you for indulging me. Now onto the next order of business. I've been ordered to overlook preparations for our next campaign against Hanoverians. Thank you for your offer, Mr. Prozmovsky, but as a general of this army I have this under control. As long as my men are supplied, the assembly can be assured of our victory. Good, but if I may, it's Commander Prozmovsky to you, General. It's a new rank, an idea of a new Minister of the Army. It means, as its name suggests, that I'm in command of all of our armed forces. That means that if I get an order to overlook you, I have to do this, and you have to comply. Look, kid, I'm no more happy about this than you are. If I stay here and second-guess your every decision, then this campaign is already lost. So I'll just ask you this one question. Are you resolved to bring the war with Duchy of Hanover to a satisfactory end? Of course, sir. Good to hear. And that's it for my overlooking. But if I were you, I would march to Brandenburg as soon as possible. And once there, I'd tell my men that all punishments for looting are suspended. And why would I do that? You mentioned supplies before, General. This will be the largest problem right now. The assembly is good if you want to write new laws for farmers, but when it comes to military affairs, they really don't know what they're doing. They have no idea how much food, among other things, is needed to keep an army moving. And as much as they like to think they've already won, just because they planted a flag atop the royal palace, the truth is they have no control over most of the country for now. It'll take our men months to make everything work again. So until that happens, your best bet to feed your men is to steal food from our enemies. Understood. I think the men would actually enjoy that, Commander. These Germans need to be taught a lesson after what they did to our soldiers in Berlin. You can tell the assembly I'll be departing soon, and I will bring them peace they want. Now, during the end turn sequence, I received an unexpected message. It seems that our former trading partners, the Ottoman Empire, are willing to resume our prosperous relationship, and they're even willing to pay me some money for it. This is unexpected because they do not have any provinces that border ours, and we do not have access to any commercial port to trade around the Austrian Empire. But, as we can see here, the Ottomans have actually captured Podolia from the Austrians, once again opening a land route between our capitals. At one hand, it's good news, knowing that Austrian occupation of one of our regions was short-lived, but on the other, it also means that now it might be difficult to actually retake that bit of land, because it's in the hands of a nation that generally acts friendly towards us. So, the war is out of consideration for now, but since Ottomans proved to be reasonable in their dealings with us, maybe, sometime in the future, we'd be able to buy Podolia back from them. But for now we must accept that we will be sharing a land border with the greatest Islamic nation in the world, so perhaps it would be prudent to keep an eye on them. Since not much is happening to us now, I've decided to take a look at this newly started war between Austrians and Turks. As you can see, Imperial armies are now stranded in the center of Podolia, keeping close to each other to prevent Ottomans from attacking them on their own, But we can also see that Sultan's forces are incredibly numerous, with 5 armies within 1 turn's marching distance from Austrian forces, and with reinforcements surely awaiting in the fog of war. And it seems that Ottoman forces aren't too big on quality of their troops. As you can see here, their armies consist mostly of cheap, irregular melee infantry, even including some peasants hastily thrown into the army to pad the numbers. On the other hand, though, these numbers might just be enough to defeat Austrians. Their main force, led by General Kellerman, the same man who was marching in Warsaw less than a year ago, is made out of professional forces, but it's not a full stack. And the secondary force, led by Franz Mayer, is almost entirely composed of Hungarian militia units. Brave men to be sure, but untrained to deal with such overwhelming numbers Ottomans are willing to throw at them. So it's an interesting situation, because if it comes to the battle, I'm pretty sure that both sides will suffer extreme casualties. But I feel that if Austrians stay together, then they might be able to present enough firepower to stop the undisciplined mobs that will be thrown against them. Looking at it from our perspective, it doesn't really matter who wins or who loses. As long as these two mighty empires are fighting each other, then they're not focused on us, and we'll be able to use this to recover. The next few months continue to pass in a rather uneventful manner. We've repaired all the damage done to our country, and we've even managed to improve overall wealth of our lands, because our citizens are using the fact that our tax system is currently non-existent to start up great many businesses across the country, improving the quality of life and local commerce at the same time. As for our enemies, we haven't really seen Hanoverians do anything. They just move their troops between Berlin and Rostock, seemingly uninterested in us. But something is happening in the south. It seems that there's some sort of fierce rivalry going on in the Sultan's army, because his men are unwilling to act as a cohesive force. Instead, every single noble seems to be leading their forces as a separate unit, creating this mass of small armies marching up and down across the land. And that actually slows the game down to a crawl. There's also a second possibility, that Sultan Mehmet is creating some sort of time-stopping machine. Perhaps he's trying to carve a hole in time-space continuum to go back in time and ensure Ottoman's place as the strongest nation in the world. Or perhaps it's just a bug caused by a myriad of small Turkish armies moving around and taking forever to calculate their pathfinding. Just for the record though, I think that time warp machine theory sounds way better. Unfortunately, this means that the game is really difficult to play now, because end-turn sequences can last up to 10 minutes, so I'm going to handicap myself here and turn off the AI movement animations. I won't be able to see at a glance what they're doing, but at the very least this should reduce turn times to something slightly more manageable. All around us, the balance of power keeps changing. In the faraway India, the mighty Maratha Confederacy, the last bastion of native Hindu religion on the subcontinent, had fallen to the unrelenting advance of Mughal Empire, the Muslim descendants of Chinggis Khan. That means that, except some small regions occupied by European nations, the entire India is now in the hands of the Mughal Sultan, and once he consolidates his conquests, he will inevitably become one of the major powers in the world. With an entire wealth of India at their disposal and with near unlimited manpower, the Mughal Empire might become a threat even to the biggest European players. And I just remember that, not so long ago, they had offered me an alliance, which I declined. I should really start thinking these offers through before I make some stupid decision like this one. And now it seems that our brief period of respite is over. At the beginning of my turn, I have realized that one of Hanoverian forces disappeared, and I spotted them at sea trying to use their naval supremacy to launch an invasion against me. And then I have noticed a second force, made almost entirely out of cannons. This is a mighty battery, to be sure, but on its own is almost completely defenseless. And so, after realizing that, our military men immediately came up with a plan. Poniatowski would take all his cavalry and race towards that artillery-based army. If we can chase them down and force them to fight, our horsemen should be able to easily outmaneuver the cannons, attack from the flanks and wipe this army without much trouble. Meanwhile, Lempicki will move away from Königsberg to take command of the rest of Poniatowski's force in his absence. Now, this entire situation could be dangerous because I don't know where the Hanoverian fleet will land, but then I realize that my lack of ports will actually work to my favor now. Without the port to occupy and land in, the Hanoverian army will have to spend an entire turn to unload from the transports, meaning that I'll be able to intercept them with ease. But, obviously, nothing is ever easy. As the new turn begins, we can see that Hanoverian artillery withdrew further back into Brandenburg, just into reinforcement range of another army. So my brilliant idea to take them out in a quick fight just went out the window. Now I'm checking their army at sea to figure out why they aren't moving, but I realize that it's not the same army as before. And here we see that their army from the previous turn had already landed near Königsberg, so now we're in trouble. We can't wait for Poniatowski to come back with his cavalry, because if we wait, then our enemies will inevitably disembark a second army and gain advantage over us. So we must act now and attack Hanoverians when they're still disorganized. We can't give them a chance to link up. Now, I have no idea how the hell they're able to maintain so many forces while having only 2 regions, Perhaps they are supported by someone else. I know that some of their units are British mercenaries, but I have no idea what business Great Britain has to support war against us. Either way, we must first deal with this problem on our shores. We'll look for those responsible afterwards. So here's my plan. Poniatowski will ride night and day to get as close to Königsberg as he can. He can't reach the enemy army, but he can get close enough to be in reinforcement range, so we should be able to use his horsemen to gain cavalry advantage on the field. Lempicki, on the other hand, will take the main force and attack Hanoverians head-on. And for the first time since Wrocław, our force will outnumber our enemies. So this is it, the big test. The National Assembly had won the country, but now they will have to fight to keep it. It will also be the test for our common soldiers. After months of training, they will finally face a real enemy. We'll see how they fare next time. I have seen this glorious revolution with my own eyes. There was nothing glorious about it. It began quietly. A runner arrived with news about riots in Warsaw, but we paid him no heed. After all, riots happened all the time ever since von Wettin took the throne. But then more bad news came up. First, merchant classes closing their businesses to noble families, then the split in the military, and finally Potocki's death. By the time we learned about King August's escape, it was already too late to prepare. Angry mobs rose around the country, pillaging and burning every noble estate they could find. I told my master to run, but he was sure he could take out local bands with his small retinue. A year ago that would have worked, but this time rioters were fearless. We've heard about agents of this National Assembly traveling around the country and spreading their propaganda, but we never expected what their rhetorics could do to our people. When howling mobs arrived at our estate, they just torn my master retinue apart with their bare hands without caring about their own losses. Then they captured everyone else, my master, his family, even servants, boys and girls from local villages no less, then herded them into a house and set it on fire. I was walking in the stable when they attacked, so I managed to sneak away in the chaos, but I've seen everything, and I've heard them all. Then the mob set fire to an entire estate. They even burned our granary full of grain from last harvest. When priests from nearby church tried to stop them, explain them that we need the grain to survive the winter, they just threw him into another burning building, screaming about purging all monarchists. I can't believe what this revolution did to our people. I knew everyone from that mob. We all lived in the same village. A few days earlier we all met for a few beers in a tavern, but on the day of the attack I had no doubts they would have killed me on the spot just for walking in my master's estate. Whatever this assembly did to them, it poisoned their minds, turned them into raging murderers. If that's how this new republic is going to look, a nation ruled by mindless mobs, then I pray for my country. It will devour itself within a decade.